Oh, I like that response. So let's start with a quick question. Nothing crazy. How many of you in here are leaders? All right. I can see you in the back corner there. So those of you who didn't raise your hand, no right or wrong answer here, no good or bad. I wonder why. Because all of you are leaders. You are leaders of your families. You are leaders of your teams, of your businesses, and more importantly, of yourselves. So as the title of the talk is Self-Leadership in Action, that's what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. I'm up here on the stage, but I want to keep this as casual as possible because ultimately I'm telling you my story. And a lot of these talks that I typically give are around leadership concepts, leadership theory, sort of do's and don'ts, best practices of leadership. And today it's not that. It's not going to be a bunch of slides. It's not going to be me just spouting off leadership terms and concepts to you. It's actually going to be me sharing my life with you. And it's been a life that I feel incredibly grateful for, and it's been a life of choices, challenges, and triumphs. I've got some amazing friends here. I've got my family, my mother, my father, my brother in the back, and that means the world to me because obviously this is my family here, and this is where I am today. This is our holiday photo, so you guys are getting a sneak peek before anyone gets a holiday card. But this is our holiday photo from this year that we took in Jupiter, Florida, and this is present day. And I'm going to share with you the story that's taken me, the twists and turns, ups and downs, to get me back to where we are today. So when I asked you who in here is a leader, let me ask another question. Who in this room has had a challenge of any kind that they've experienced in their life? Yeah. In the back? No challenges? The reason why I asked that question is because those challenges were an opportunity for you to lead yourself through that, to maintain a certain mindset, to see what it is that you do well, things you don't do as well, where there are opportunities and possibilities through those challenges. That's leadership. That's leadership. So when I asked that question, and so I'll give you a little heads up, at the end of this talk, who's a leader, I expect all hands to be up because you all are. So let me go all the way back. I was born outside of Boston, Massachusetts, to a Moroccan father and an American mother. We soon moved from New England to the Middle East. We were living in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia for a number of years. My brother was born in Saudi Arabia, and around the time where I was school age, we moved back to the United States. We moved back to the United States. I went into kindergarten. Wasn't in kindergarten for very long before they plucked me out of kindergarten and put me into first grade. So I was about 5. I had done a little bit of schooling in Kuwait, so they said, we think that you're probably ready for first grade. We're going to move you into first grade. Well, as I reflect on that, and I think back to things that have influenced me in my life, that was a moment where I felt a little out of control. I didn't have a say in that. I was 5 years old. I was moved into first grade, but what an opportunity it could have been. And I could have ran the other way and panicked about what that meant. Oh, why am I here? This isn't where I'm supposed to be. I'm just moving back to the United States. What an adjustment that must have been. But I leaned into it. And I actually really valued the opportunity to rise up and meet that challenge. And that was the first moment where I realized, ooh, this is all a choice. This is all a choice. So fast forward, we moved down to South Florida. I was born in Boston in December. My brother was born in Saudi Arabia in December. One was in winter, one was in warm climates of the Middle East, and we decided when we came back to the United States, we didn't want to go back to the cold, we wanted to come back somewhere warm. So here we are in South Florida. Fast forward to middle school, and there's an elective class called peer counseling. And it was an opportunity for me to take an elective course where they would teach students the ins and outs of counseling and what that entailed, so that you could be a peer counselor to those of your classmates who felt they needed it. Parents who were separating, some abuse that they were experiencing at home, life transitions that they were struggling to navigate. And we, as their peers, could support them through that. And here I am, a little 6th grader, 7th grader, the only boy in the class, and I felt compelled to join this class. I felt compelled to learn what it meant to help and support other people. None of my friends wanted to do it. None of my friends questioned why I did it. I just was very excited and confident about that decision, and I did it. I got my black satin jacket. I wore it proudly around campus. I don't know how I didn't get beat up, but honestly, I was so proud of that opportunity because of what it created for me. There was another component to it, which was conflict mediation. So we had to learn conflict mediation. And I'd go have lunch. We'd go out to the schoolyard. I'd watch two of my buddies get into a big old fight. And then 30 minutes later, I'd be in a room with the two of them mediating the conflict and having them sign an agreement that said, we now understand why that happened and why it won't happen again. Who was I to be in that room? Who was I to be there, sitting there, counseling my peers, mediating conflicts that I was just 30 minutes sort of peeking in the circle to see what was going on and who was fighting? That was leadership. And that's where I started to fall in love with leadership. Does anybody need water? You might. That's what I forgot this morning. So fast forward to high school, and there's an opportunity to join ROTC. And JROTC was an opportunity to learn about, for me, leadership from a military's perspective. And I had no aspirations of going into the military. A lot of respect for our men and women in the armed services, but I hadn't planned to do that. I just knew this was an opportunity for me to learn leadership from a different angle. So I spent 4 years shining my shoes, shining my belt buckle, getting dressed in a uniform every Wednesday, and learning about what leadership meant. Leadership being led, but also leadership leading others. And that was such an opportunity. And as Evan shared with you, my 3 C's are clarity, confidence, and compassion. Clarity around what leadership is, who I am as a leader, what leadership means to me, was crucial for me understanding how I could then be more confident as a friend, as a brother, as a son, as a student, as an athlete, as a leader. So fast forward to a few years later, I go to school at Florida State University. I'm having an amazing opportunity there to get an education, and I see a guy on stage playing music. And he's by himself playing this solo acoustic set, and I said, you know, he looks lonely. I love to play guitar, I love to sing. What if I asked him if he wanted to partner up? Out of the blue, I decided to approach him during one of his set breaks and say, hey, you did a great set. Are you interested in partnering up with anybody and seeing what we can do together? And lo and behold, he said, let's meet up on the weekend. Let's see what that would look like. And we ended up spending 2 years playing music together all throughout the Southeast. We played all kinds of game day events and Greek life social events. And we found ourselves in Key West, Florida as a featured act at Irish Kevin's. And if any of you have been to Key West, Florida, I think the slogan there is, I came, I drank, I don't remember. So Irish Kevin's is an incredibly iconic spot on Duval Street in Key West. And we were a featured act down there. We played 4-hour shows every day. I had graduated from Florida State. I was down here playing in Key West, and I was thinking, wow, this is an amazing turn of events. My father was a professor, my mother has her master's degree. We're a family who really valued education. I thought for sure I was gonna continue on with my education, but wow, it looks like my life's taking a different turn. It looks like I'm gonna be a musician. And the day that they offered me a full-time spot down in Key West was also the same day that, I forgot I had applied to Indiana University for graduate school. I got an acceptance letter to IU. Now I'm sitting here thinking, do I stay down here with my shirt unbuttoned and no shoes and play these songs for these travelers and these tourists for the foreseeable future? Or do I make this choice to pursue my education and pivot? Well, I made the choice to go to Indiana University. So I went to Indiana University. I spent 2 amazing years there. I got my master's degree. When I left, I still had this itch. I still had this desire to do entertainment, to explore what that was like. My father was a playwright in Boston. I knew that I had that in my blood. I was excited to see what that would lead to. So I came down here, I got a couple agents. I started doing Advanced Auto Parts commercials. I started doing Florida orange juice commercials. I was on a couple of feature films as an extra. And then all of a sudden I was shadowing this local actor, and he is an older established actor, and there was a scene where he had to fall down some stairs. And someone said to me, Anthony's not gonna do it. Do you wanna do it? And I jokingly said something like, yeah, I went to Florida State, I could fall down some stairs. So sure enough, they strapped me up, put me on the top of the stairs, and down I went. And when I got to the bottom of the stairs, they said, wow, great job, you fell beautifully. Would you like to do some more of that? And I thought, okay, here I am yet again faced with this choice. Do I want to do stunts? I don't think I ever had it in my mind that I was going to do stunt work. But sure enough, I worked with this company, JCB Stunts, and I was on Spanish soap operas. I'm doing all the Spanish soap operas that we know and love in the South Florida area, getting extensions into my hair so I could pretend to be Mario stunt driving. And even at one point, this is a story I love to tell, as a non-Spanish speaker in South Florida, I decided, okay, I'm gonna go take this gig. And they said to me, so you're gonna be the squad leader. I said, oh yeah, no, I'm just an extra, I don't speak Spanish. And the guy said, well, can you say vamos? I said, yeah, I can say vamos. He said, can you say no te muevas? I said, I can say no te muevas. Can you say al piso? I said, yeah. He said, squad leader. So they set me up, and next thing I knew, here I am speaking roles on El Cuerpo de Deseo as squad leader. And I'm thinking, what an amazing opportunity. Never would I have ever thought that I would have been doing stunts, let alone on a Spanish soap opera, let alone having speaking roles. And I had no idea what this meant for any of my journey. Well, how did this fit in? But it was about this sort of acceptance. This was giving me clarity. This was allowing me to be more confident with the decision that I ultimately did make, which was entertainment, acting, stunts, was not the direction I ultimately wanted my life to go. I could make that decision confidently because I had taken the time to explore. I had taken the time to reflect on what is being presented to me, what can I do, and what is this teaching me about me? So I decided to leave acting and stunts, and where would I go? I went to Las Vegas for a year. And I worked at an Outback, and I substitute taught kindergarten, and I had a master's degree, and all my friends were like, what are you doing? I said, I don't know, I'm just letting life take me where life is taking me. And of course, as you all can appreciate, there's this outside pressure. I talk a lot about this with clients, this outside in thinking versus inside out thinking. Let me say that again. Outside in thinking, what everything outside of us tells us about who we are on the inside versus knowing who we are on the inside that then shapes what we create outside of ourselves. So for me, I just listened to what I felt was alive in me. Where did I want to go? What did I want to do? So I was in Las Vegas. I stayed in Las Vegas for a year. I had an amazing time. I got to see a part of the country that I would never have had a chance to see. I drove to Joshua Tree and the Mojave in California and through Utah. It was an amazing opportunity. And once I'd had my fill, I said, you know what? It's time to move on. So I moved to DC, sight unseen. I'd had lots of friends who had gone to DC with family on family trips. They had gone with school trips. I had never been to DC. I actually pulled into DC at 2 o'clock in the morning with my Ford Explorer loaded up, and I had a Capitol police officer behind me. If you know DC, they run through the Capitol with their lights always on. They're always on. Well, I was like, I just pulled into DC and I've already got a ticket. So I pull over, and that cop just slowly cruises right on past me. And then I realized all the other cops had their lights on too. I was like, oh, okay, this is the thing. I'd never been to DC, I didn't know. And I ended up finding myself sleeping on someone's couch. And then I found a friend who said, you can stay in my apartment if you help house sit for me while I'm away doing some governmental work. I said, okay. I had no job. And it was like my pursuit of happiness, moment. I was out there with resume in hand, pounding the pavement, almost quite literally, because like, what am I doing here? And I was handing my resume to people, I was waiting in people's offices, and I just kept thinking, and my parents will attest, I cried. I cried a lot, thinking, what have I done? Has all that time acting and music and Vegas and traveling and festivals and friends, and was that all just a waste? I didn't know at the time, but I accepted that it was giving me greater clarity, it was giving me greater confidence. And the compassion piece is when that came in. Whew. It's easy to beat yourself up. It's really easy to beat yourself up in these moments where you don't know. But the knowing comes from the clarity and the confidence. The compassion piece is actually you just being okay with what is in the moment. So I was answering phones. I was doing reception work. I even got a job in Northern Virginia selling condos at the height of the housing market boom for the bust as a non-real estate agent, where I would sell the condo and I would have to then pass it off to the agent who would then get the commission. And my reward was a steak dinner. And I was thinking, whoo, I mean, these are $400,000, $500,000 condos. I'd get the sale, pass it off to the agent and think, wow, $14 an hour and a steak dinner. Whew, I've made it. And here I am in DC with a master's degree thinking, what was all this for? I got a call from the American Bar Association. I'm not a lawyer. I had no aspirations of being a lawyer. What am I going to do at the American Bar Association in Washington, D.C.? Well, they called me for a recruiter job. As I'm on the phone, I'm thinking to myself, did I even apply for that job? Well, let's have the conversation, see where it goes. Why not? I got the job. I was in it for about 4 months, and I was asked to move over to the Central Asia desk. Because of my master's degree, which is in Middle East Studies, and my familiarity with Islamic law, I was on a plane to Kyrgyzstan, Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan. That is not on my short list of spring break destinations. Here I am in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, and I'm taking a flight from Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan to, if any of you have seen the movie Spies Like Us, to Dushanbe. It's real. And I was on my way to Dushanbe on Tajik Air, AKA Tragic Air, where they were passing out sandwich bags in case you got sick on your way to Dushanbe. And as I stood there in Dushanbe with one of my colleagues and my field staff, I was thinking, what am I doing in Central Asia? How did I get to Central Asia? I was selling condos in Northern Virginia just a couple months ago, and now I'm standing here in Dushanbe, Tajikistan. And I was there to train my staff on writing quarterly reports and annual reports. And what I saw was there was a real lack of leadership. There was a real lack of professionalism. There was a real lack of clarity and confidence in who each of them were and what they brought to this office as professionals. So I threw out the plan for the trip and I said, we're not going to worry about writing quarterly and annual reports. We're going to focus on how you can be a better you, how you can be a better professional, how you can contribute to this office. And that's where I fell in love with coaching. And even in that moment, it wasn't this aha moment like it's going to be coaching and only coaching. But it was a realization that, oh, some of the things that I have developed over time, the experiences, the learnings of myself, about the world, about others, has now positioned me in a place where I can actually be of value to these people I'm working with now, maybe even in a different way that was originally intended. So I ended up, the girl who hired me at the American Bar Association, I ended up dating her for a very long time. And that drew me to look at Boston as a possibility to move. I said, I'm not just moving to Boston for any reason. There's got to be a plan. There's got to be some value. You know, you're going there for school. You've got your thing. I want to have my thing too. Well, lucky enough, the phone rang. It was Harvard Law School. And when Harvard calls, you pick up the phone. So I'm sitting there at the airport. I remember coming home for the holidays and I take the call. Again, thinking to myself, did I even apply for this job? I don't even know if I did. But still, thankful for the opportunity. And I had this phone call, and next thing I knew, I was on my way up to Boston to start working at Harvard Law School. Again, not an Ivy League graduate, not a lawyer. Why am I going to a top-tier law school to work? But it was the next step. It was the evolution of my journey. And I'll tell you, I got there, and the woman that I was expecting to spend that time with, moving to Boston, shared with me she'd like to relocate back to DC, where I had just moved from. And I'll never forget the question she asked, which was, what are you going to do now? And that was a moment for me that I'll never forget, because I remember thinking, what am I going to do now? I'm going to be me. I'm going to do what I do. I don't know what that is. I don't know when that will happen or how that will happen. I'm just going to keep showing up. But if you think that I'm going to tuck my tail between my legs and I'm going to run home, that's not who I am. I have more to offer than that, as do all of you. So I stayed. And in that time up in Boston, I doubled my salary in 5 years at Harvard. I was given the Dean's Award for Excellence and made the mayor of Harvard Law School. I met my beautiful wife. We got married in Maine. I didn't know what to say to her. I didn't know how to rationalize this. I didn't know what the possibilities might be. Just as it were the case in all the other instances of my life, but man, this one was a little different. This one felt really close to home. And we just got home, We cried, we held each other, and we decided we'd see how this would play out. It did not play out in the weeks to follow as we had hoped it would, and things got progressively worse. So we went in for one of our appointments and they said, I'm very sorry. The only way to salvage this pregnancy, to save this, is if you go and get an emergency procedure. And we said, okay, when? They said, now. And I said, okay, is it down the hall? They said, no, it's either Brown University or Johns Hopkins, because we don't do it here in Boston. Okay, well, how do we make that happen? They made the phone calls in the office. Johns Hopkins said, send them down right now. It was 5:30 on a Thursday. There was no way we were getting to Johns Hopkins at that time. Oh, by the way, it was inauguration weekend in Baltimore. To get down to Baltimore was quite challenging. We caught the first flight out the next morning, and by 10 a.m., my wife was on the operating table. I had no idea what this procedure was. I had no idea what the risks were or what the success rates were. We were just showing up, one foot in front of the other, knowing that it was going to give us some more clarity about what's going on. It's going to give us more confidence on a decision that we may have to make down the road. And we came out, and I'm happy to say that after that procedure, we were labeled back in Boston, as we met our doctors weekly, her rock star patients. These boys grew, they got stronger and stronger. We got more confident that we were going to become parents, and they arrived a little bit early, healthy, I'm happy to say, but then spent the next 5 and 6 weeks in the NICU. All while this is happening, I'm having conversations with my colleagues at Harvard to tell them that I'm no longer going to work here. People thought I was out of my mind. Why would you leave Harvard? You got a great job. You've got a great salary. You've worked your way up. You've got kids in the NICU right now. You've just doubled the size of your family. What are you going to do? I had a vision. I had a vision for what I wanted for this family, what I wanted for our future, because of the clarity that I created throughout my life in all these circumstances that told me more about what I valued, what my values were. So when I left Harvard Law School with no job lined up, kids who had just recently exited the NICU, to move back down to South Florida, where I had grown up but hadn't been for 20 years, people thought I was out of my mind. But if they had known my story beforehand, it might not have seemed so crazy. And when I moved down here, I got a call from University of Miami. And guys in the back, if you have this photo, I'd love for you to put it up. So this is the one I decided on, but there is another one that I had sort of gone back and forth about. I don't know if they're back there, but this is the one. This is orientation day at UM. And poor Sebastian, look at him, look how upset he is. So it was orientation day at UM. I took the job at University of Miami to be their director of executive education. It was my first day. I was really excited. Having grown up in South Florida, I knew UM, I loved UM, and now I'm working there. This is amazing. And the day of orientation was also the week that University of Miami was playing Florida State, where I went to undergrad. I said, I can't hug you and put up the U. I'm not doing it. So I threw up the chop, and that was his response. And it set me on this track to having a really great time at UM. And 4 months after I got the job, the person who had hired me retired. And it started this carousel of leadership and deans. And in my time there, I had 7 different supervisors, 6 different deans, and 5 title changes. It was a roller coaster. Meanwhile, I've got 4-month-old twins living with my parents and my wife, where we're all in the same home together. I'm thinking, where do we go from here? And what I realized was, this is a great moment for me to reflect. This is a great moment for me to reflect, where I've got the support of my family. I'm creating amazing relationships and friendships in South Florida again. What is this all about? And for me, what the realization was is that this was a self-leadership challenge. It always has been. And now I'm faced with another opportunity. I'm presented another opportunity. I get to decide what this opportunity is going to be for me. And we started looking at houses, and we decided where we wanted to live and where our kids would go to school. And I decided, you know what? I want to do something for me, so I launched my practice at the very, very end of 2019, just in time for what? The pandemic. And as my colleagues were getting furloughed and let go because of all of the disruption from the pandemic, I had to double down on the one salary that we had as a family to figure out where am I going to go next? Not knowing if it's just going to be 1 month, 1 year, 2 years, who could have predicted? And what a challenging couple of years, I understand, but also what an opportunity to slow down and to think, where am I? Where have I been? Where do I want to go? And these choices and challenges and triumphs could have all been challenges if I had decided that they were challenges. They could have all been devastating or led me into a different direction if I hadn't just seen them as opportunities. But through self-leadership, I saw them as opportunities for me to gain more clarity, to become more confident with where I'd go next, and to have compassion for the people around me who were making their own choices and taking their life in their own direction. And for me also, to not always know and that be okay. So as I share all of this with you today, I'm sharing it as an opportunity for you to reflect on the twists and turns, ups and downs of your own lives, and to reframe that story. I did a talk one time where it was just ditch the pitch and embrace your career story. Well, let's take out career. Just embrace your story. Love your story. Love your journey. See what it's taught you about you and about your life, but also about self-leadership. Where has that been strong? Where has that not been as strong? Was there an opportunity to do something different? And would you do that differently going forward? Answering those questions is what self-leadership is about. I shared with Evan as we were doing some pre-talk podcasting that kids have 300 to 400 questions in their brain a day. And if you guys have been around kids, you know that to be true. We as adults have anywhere between 25 to 30 a day, so significantly less. But the difference is we don't answer a lot of those questions. So we have questions that come up, and the self-leadership piece that's available to you always is to stop, hear the question, and then answer it. No right or wrong answer, no good or bad, but actually to reflect, in this moment, what would be my answer to that question? And through that, you'll start to realize you get a better sense of self through that clarity, developing that confidence, and having some compassion with yourself, showing yourself some grace that there is no there is no right or wrong, good or bad, but this is all part of the journey. So for me, my offer to you is to reflect on that journey, journal about that journey, share that journey with people, and start to figure out how it's shaped who you are, how it shaped the story that you get to tell people today, which I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to share with you all today. And I hope that the story continues to evolve. Thank you.